Okay, so one thing I recommend after you complete your outline is to check for where you're placing your plot points in your story. And here's why I say this: timing. One thing I learned is the importance of timing in storytelling, especially when you're implementing story elements. Let's say, for example, character growth, like emotionally, physically, anything to do with that. That's one thing I learned, and this is really what sparked up this video idea because I watched a show, an anime, let's say, called Windbreaker, and this is season two, by the way. So if you know, you know. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I was watching like episode four and five of the show, and one thing I didn't like was they showcased the main character, which his name is Sakura, and they showcase his emotional growth in those episodes, but I didn't like the placement, like the timing of it at all. And this is why. And I wrote down some notes here to kind of help remind myself. So, just to give context, the main reason why I don't like it is because when they place his emotional growth journey, it was after they succeeded a mission and was able to save somebody, and it was like a kind of like a happy ending already. And then that's when he had the whole internal conflict with himself from success. And that's when he started having that, and then emotional growth between those episodes started to happen. But I was just thinking to myself, I was wondering, why did I not care as much as I usually do when I see these moments, especially from a main character? And I think I'm starting to realize why. And this is what's going to lead to the reason why I say timing is so important when it comes to storytelling. I believe that if it was the case where they failed the mission, or let's say it was the case that they failed the mission and it's because of the lack of growth in his character, like the flaws is the reason why they failed, and he needs to go through that journey of going through that emotional growth, physical growth, any type of growth at all as a character in order to complete that mission, that goal, then I think I'll resonate with it more. Like I'll be more invested into that growth because I could see where that was necessary in order for them to achieve whatever they want to achieve in the storyline. Because the way they presented it, especially how they just succeeded on a goal, on a mission, despite his flaws, or maybe even though, like, I'll say this, they succeeded and stuff like that. One thing they did a great job of is they succeeded, but it still was able to showcase his flaws during that time, during that whole goal of saving someone. So yes, they show their flaws, but I think the fact that they still succeeded anyways is what causing me to not really, I'm not as invested into the emotional goal. Let's say that I'm not invested into the growth of his character as much as if he was like his flaws was the reason why they couldn't even complete the mission in the first place. Let's say that. And I think another way would have been better is if his emotional growth or any type of growth as a character was necessary for him to overcome an obstacle. Let's say they did complete this mission, but that was just like a smaller part of a bigger mission coming up. So I think it would have been better if they succeeded that mission. He recognized his flaws during that time period, and then they already have something lined up in terms of a bigger goal, a bigger mission they have to do later on. So like let's say that was like a smaller part of like a bigger objective, let's say. And if they had did it like that, I believe, and then he had to recognize that flaw even though they succeeded, same way how the show did it. But he realized that he needs to get his act together and improve emotionally before the bigger, much more difficult objective comes around. Then I think I'll be a lot more invested into his growth. Because it's like, yes, it's great to see character growth, but you want to see it implemented some way in the story of like, okay, you learn this. This is something that's going to be extremely helpful in the future, but we don't have an idea of when that's going to be implemented in order to showcase how that growth really helped with the team, let's say, or the overall goal they're trying to achieve in the story. Like, without knowing when that growth is going to be implemented, it's harder for me, at least, to be as invested into the character's growth when it's not attached to their higher purpose, let's say, in the storyline. So that's one thing I really wanted to mention and keep in mind of, especially when you're going through your outline, or let honestly, this is probably more for if you're going through your first draft. Timing is very important. That's one thing I'm learning, is like the importance of timing. Yes, you could have a very important scene and moment. Emotional growth is very great for a story, especially for your main character, but where you place that part of the story, like when it happens, is just as important as well. So that's the main thing I want you to take away from this video. When you place that idea in your story, like which part of the story you place it, it's just as important as the idea itself. And that's something I want you to keep in mind as you're writing out your first draft, as you're going over your outline. That's something I think you should pay attention to more, because that's something I realized myself that I need to pay attention to more as well. But yeah, you let me know your thoughts on that, on the importance of timing when it comes to storytelling. And if you ever come across that with your own story, or if you came across that with watching a show or reading a book, you didn't like where they place certain parts of the story there, a certain plot line or a certain element. And it's like, you thought, it'd be better if they left it for something later on, or they should have done this earlier on in the story. But yeah, you let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, just to let you know, if you're trying to complete your outline, let's say, and you're stuck at a certain point, or you just want someone to review your outline, give some suggestions or any type of feedback, anything like that, or if you want to brainstorm at all, you could click on the link somewhere there, here, whatever, and there'll be a video that's going to be popping up in a corner. It's going to be explaining how I do consultation calls and how I work with people. So yeah, you could definitely check that out if you are interested in wanting to talk to me, partner up, see what we could do with your outline. You can also click on the link down below to check it out, book a time with me, and then we can speak about your story. Make sure you give me enough time as well to read your outline before we meet. I like to read people's outlines, have a good grasp of my thoughts, my first reactions of the outline before we talk, because I think I'll be able to bring the most value if I'm able to do that as well. So keep that in mind in choosing a time when we should meet and speak about your story. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. And yeah, just to let you know as well, regardless of timing, if the idea resonates with you, don't get rid of it, keep it, but make sure you placed it in the right place in the story. Right? That's all I want to have you keep in mind as you're writing your first draft, reviewing your outline, anything like that in the process of writing your story. So, yeah, hope this video helps. Hope you have an amazing day. Thanks for listening. Yep. Have a great one.